A unique glimpse inside royal life. Princess Diana's private chef is opening up, revealing what Diana was really like behind closed doors and in the kitchen.
For over 20 years, Darren McGrady remained silent. The former royal chef, who served Princess Diana with unwavering dedication, kept his thoughts to himself while watching from the sidelines as history was rewritten and painful truths were overlooked. "I'm Darren McGrady, the royal chef, former chef to the Queen, Princess Diana, Prince William, and Prince Harry," he once said. Though he cooked for royalty, it was Diana who earned his loyalty, and his silence. Now, at 63, McGrady has finally broken that silence, shocking royal observers and angering devoted fans of the late princess. His statements go beyond mere recollections, they are revelations. And at the heart of them is Queen Camilla. What McGrady has revealed about her has stunned the public and raised the pressing question: what truly happened behind the palace walls? Darren McGrady's unexpected comment about the coronation sparked immediate backlash. As anticipation built for the coronation of King Charles III and Queen Camilla, by the grace of God, sovereign of the United Kingdom and other realms, few expected McGrady, once closely tied to Princess Diana, to voice an opinion. But he did just that, in an interview that surprised both monarchists and Diana supporters. He announced he would be celebrating the event, saying, "Time has passed, and I believe it's possible to honor the present while still cherishing the past." While the comment appeared balanced and diplomatic, online reactions told a different story. Criticism came quickly. Some praised his maturity and perspective, but many saw it as a betrayal. "Diana's spirit will never be at peace if you celebrate the woman who caused her pain," one outraged user posted. Another said, "You're not loyal to her legacy. You should be telling the truth about Camilla, not raising a glass to her." To many, this shift from the man known as a quiet protector of Diana's memory was deeply unsettling. Throughout the years, McGrady had notably avoided speaking about Camilla. Despite many interviews, he had consistently steered clear of addressing the woman once known as the most hated in Britain. Camilla's affair with Prince Charles had caused Diana immense distress. Public resentment toward her still lingered, even after a 2005 YouGov poll showed that only 7% of Britons supported Camilla ever becoming queen. Fast forward to 2023, Camilla was crowned Queen Consort before millions. "I supported the coronation," McGrady reiterated. "That doesn't mean I've forgotten what Diana endured, it just means I've grown older." Perspective changes. He allegedly shared this with a reporter after the interview went viral. Yet for many, the comment felt too little, too late. But what truly shocked the public came next. Headlines soon erupted with jaw-dropping revelations from McGrady about Queen Camilla, secrets he had held onto for decades. Why speak now, after all these years? Some believe the backlash over his coronation remarks pushed him to the edge. Accusations of betraying Diana's memory may have stirred something deep within, perhaps guilt, grief, or a personal promise long overdue. Whatever the reason, McGrady is now speaking out. And his truth about Camilla's treatment of Diana is not softened by the passage of time, it's raw, bitter, and deeply painful. Before these revelations, however, McGrady's story with Diana began quietly, in the royal kitchens, long before public scandal took hold. Inside the palace, Darren's early days and his bond with Diana. Darren McGrady entered Buckingham Palace in 1982 as the lowest-ranking chef in a 20-person kitchen. He never imagined that his life would become so closely connected with Princess Diana. That same year, Diana gave birth to Prince William, marking both a new chapter for the royal family and the beginning of a lasting bond between a humble chef and a future icon. "At the time, I was chef number 20 out of 20, McGrady recalled. His early work was routine, preparing frozen vegetables for palace staff. Under the mentorship of French chef Gabriel Choumi, McGrady not only learned the standards of royal cuisine but also the unspoken rules of palace life. Even amid such formal surroundings, Diana immediately stood out. At Balmoral Castle, where the royal family spent summers, she broke protocol by visiting the kitchen herself. She'd pop in and ask for a snack for her or the boys, yogurt, orange juice, a piece of fruit, McGrady remembered. She always said thank you. Sometimes, she'd help stack the plates. Her warmth and humility, even when barefoot and in a robe, left a lasting impression. Diana brought laughter and light into the stiff atmosphere of the palace. She danced at royal events and brought a relaxed charm that softened the cold environment. While McGrady always addressed her formally, a quiet connection developed through small moments and consistent kindness. She had simple daily routines, including a nightly juice, carrot, celery, apple, whatever she fancied. But as her marriage with Charles deteriorated due to his ongoing relationship with Camilla Parker Bowles, McGrady noticed a change. One night, she didn't request her usual drink. Concerned, he prepared it anyway. She drank it in one gulp. She looked like she'd been crying, he recalled. It was in such intimate, private moments that McGrady saw the toll the affair was taking. Long before the media caught wind, he witnessed Diana's heartbreak firsthand. In 1992, Diana and Charles officially separated. She moved into apartment 8 at Kensington Palace with William and Harry. For McGrady, it felt like an era had ended. But soon after, he received a surprising call. Diana wanted him to become her personal chef. He didn't think twice about embracing life at Kensington Palace. Compared to the formality of Buckingham, Kensington felt far more relaxed and personal. Yet, the emotional pain lingered. The presence of Camilla Parker Bowles still cast a heavy shadow. McGrady heard from palace insiders that Camilla had been pleased by the separation. One particularly cruel rumor claimed she told a friend, "He is officially mine." He always has been. Whether or not Diana ever heard those words, McGrady could see the burden she carried. Despite everything, Diana remained graceful. She never lashed out, even in her pain. She was hurting, Darren said, but she was still kind. Even on her worst days, she showed warmth and respect to those around her. That, he said, was what made her different. That was what made her Diana. As time passed at Kensington, McGrady and Diana grew closer. He began to witness more of her private battles, all of which seemed to orbit around one central figure, Camilla. "I always knew I would never be queen," Diana once confided. Despite trying to create a peaceful life at Kensington Palace, she was still deeply affected by her broken marriage and Camilla's ongoing presence. Behind the elegance of the palace walls, moments of raw sadness emerged, seen only by a trusted few like McGrady. One evening, as he was clearing away dinner, Diana lingered in the kitchen. She wasn't there for food, she needed someone to listen. Quietly, almost to herself, she said, "I've always known I will never be queen. That girl who took my husband will be queen someday." The quiet pain in her words hit Darren hard. He stood there, unsure how to respond. But Diana didn't need a reply. She gently wiped away a tear and said, "Don't worry. You only had to listen." In that vulnerable moment, years of pain, betrayal, and disappointment came to the surface. Diana had always known she would be pushed aside, not only as a wife but also as a future monarch. Prince Charles's affair with Camilla had left wounds deeper than any media scandal could show. Their final years at Buckingham were marked by tension. Arguments between Charles and Diana became routine, especially whenever Camilla's name was mentioned. McGrady often heard their raised voices echo through the palace walls. He wondered why this woman had caused so much pain. In time, he understood, Charles had never truly let go of Camilla, even after marrying Diana. In 1992, Diana endured one of her most humiliating public moments with the release of the infamous Camillagate tapes. The recordings revealed explicit and intimate conversations between Charles and Camilla, confirming what Diana had long suspected. Though she never discussed the tapes directly with McGrady, he noticed a shift in her. She became quieter, more withdrawn, and lost interest in food. Her eating disorder, which she would later bravely address publicly, worsened during these emotional lows. McGrady never commented, he simply observed, silently supporting her. Diana's 1995 BBC Panorama interview with Martin Bashir became a defining moment. In front of millions, she spoke with raw honesty. "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." The world was shocked. When asked if Camilla contributed to the breakdown of the marriage, Diana confirmed the public's suspicions with the same now famous line. For Darren, this was not a revelation, it was validation. He had seen her silent suffering firsthand, and now the world knew too. Her vulnerability struck a chord globally, casting a harsh light on Charles and Camilla's affair. She also spoke about harming herself, explaining that it was a cry for help that was often misunderstood as attention-seeking. Her words helped galvanize public sympathy in a way no PR strategy ever could. Yet, amidst the pain, Diana's resilience began to shine. About a year into her life at Kensington, McGrady noticed a transformation. She looked more at peace. She began to heal, gently but powerfully. She adopted a healthier lifestyle, exercised regularly, and focused more on her charitable work. One of her most courageous acts was speaking publicly about her struggle with bulimia. This bold move inspired countless others to seek help and recognize the signs of eating disorders. For McGrady, this was the moment Diana began reclaiming her identity, not as a princess, but as a woman who had endured and chosen to rise. She was the healthiest I'd ever seen her, he recalled. She was stronger, more radiant. It seemed things were finally turning around. But fate had other plans. Just as Diana began to find peace and rebuild her life, tragedy struck. Her story, filled with strength and sorrow, took a devastating turn just as she was emerging from the shadows. I had her meal ready the day Diana died. It was a quiet Sunday morning when Darren McGrady's world stopped. Like any other day at Kensington Palace, the royal kitchen was humming gently with routine. Darren had prepared a light meal for Princess Diana, expecting her return from Paris later that evening. She was scheduled to reunite with Prince William and Harry before they went back to school. It was going to be a calm day, home-cooked food, family time, and a moment of normalcy amid the chaos of royal life. Then the television flickered with a breaking headline, Princess Diana in car crash. Thursday marks 20 years since Princess Diana was killed in a car crash inside a Paris tunnel. Moments later, Princess Diana dead at 36. I thought it was a prank, McGrady later recalled, but it was on every channel. Then I knew it was real. The weight of the moment hit him like a tidal wave. Still in shock, he rushed into work, clinging to some impossible hope that maybe the news was exaggerated or mistaken. But when the palace faxed over Diana's last will, the reality set in. There would be no return. No quiet dinner. No comforting the boys. Diana was gone. Within hours, the mood at Kensington turned funereal. The staff, loyal to her, protective of her, crumbled. McGrady stood alongside them, gutted. I had her meal ready, he said quietly. It was just sitting there untouched. Her sudden death on August 31, 1997, in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel in Paris while being pursued by paparazzi sent shock waves through the world. The nation's mourning swelled in the days that followed. More than 2.5 billion people around the globe watched her funeral. Over 60 million flowers were laid at the gates of Kensington Palace by mourners. Elton John re-recorded Candle in the Wind for her, and it became the unofficial anthem of a grieving world. Yet amid the sorrow, another tension quietly brewed about who would and shouldn't be present that day. Rumors quickly surfaced that Camilla Parker Bowles had expressed a desire to attend Diana's funeral to pay her respects and perhaps soften public hostility. Some insiders suggested she hoped her presence might be viewed as a gesture of goodwill, a bridge to a future where she could be accepted. But Queen Elizabeth reportedly put her foot down. She insisted that Camilla stay away. For McGrady, that decision was the only right one. It's a good thing she listened to the Queen and didn't go, he said. The world would never have forgiven her. People weren't mourning just a princess. They were mourning Diana. Camilla showing up would have been seen as disrespectful, like showing up at the scene of a crime you helped create. To McGrady and many who had loved Diana, the thought of Camilla, so closely tied to the pain Diana endured, walking behind her coffin would have been unbearable. The grief was still too raw. The betrayal too fresh. Diana's memory was still sacred. On the day of the funeral, Darren stood among the palace staff as the procession passed by. He had already visited Diana one last time at the Chapel Royal, where her body lay in peaceful repose. The quiet hush in the room. The weight of finality. It was all too much. But standing beside others who had worked with her, cared for her, and quietly admired her strength, he felt a flicker of peace. Even in death, Diana had united the world. Not just in grief, but in love, for her authenticity, her compassion, her vulnerability. As public grief echoed worldwide, a quieter change was taking place, one that Darren would never forget. The wedding Darren refused to attend. Camilla and Charles tied the knot on April 9, 2005. Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles were finally married in a civil ceremony at Windsor Guildhall, followed by a religious blessing at St. George's Chapel. For many, it was a long-anticipated moment, a quiet legitimization of a relationship that had weathered decades of scandal. But for Darren McGrady, the day marked something else entirely. "I didn't watch. I didn't go. I couldn't," McGrady later admitted. "My thoughts were with Diana the whole day." By then, McGrady had left royal service and was living in the United States, running a successful catering company. Still, the royal world hadn't left him. He remained in close contact with former colleagues at the palace, many of whom had also served Diana. As the wedding approached, his phone buzzed with texts and emails. There was a shared discomfort among them, an unspoken understanding that something about the celebration didn't sit right. To McGrady, the ceremony felt like a final rewriting of history. "I'm Darren McGrady, the royal chef, former chef to the Queen, Princess Diana, Prince William and Prince Harry." A quiet erasure of the pain Diana had endured. "They got what they wanted in the end," he said, "but the cost was enormous. And that day only reminded me of it." What struck Darren the most wasn't just the marriage. It was how swiftly Diana's memory had begun to fade within palace walls. He'd heard from former staff that Camilla's entrance into Clarence House and later Buckingham Palace had brought significant changes. Many of Diana's favorite charities were no longer prioritized. Some staff members loyal to Diana were reassigned or dismissed. It felt like a full reset, McGrady explained. As if the past needed to be tidied up, hidden away. It was in the midst of this quiet erasure that one memory surfaced with haunting clarity. Diana had once told McGrady, "I'll never be queen. That girl who took my husband will be queen someday." On the day of the wedding, those words echoed in his mind. And those quiet observations, stored for years in silence, would soon become the foundation for Darren's most explosive revelations about Camilla's role behind palace walls. She is pure evil. Camilla's erasure of Diana's memory inside the palace. For years after Princess Diana's death, Darren McGrady remained quiet, out of respect, out of grief, and perhaps out of fear that speaking out might only reignite wounds. But behind that silence was a storm of observations, emotions, and truths that had long gone unspoken. And when he finally began to talk, it was Camilla's actions after Diana's death that stunned the world in one of the most emotionally charged moments of his public revelations. At 63, Darren McGrady opened up about what transpired after Camilla moved into Clarence House and eventually Buckingham Palace. The changes began subtly, almost unnoticeably, but to those who had known Diana, they were undeniable. McGrady believed her memory was being systematically erased. The evidence, he said, was everywhere. The gentle, feminine touches Diana had brought to her private rooms, soft pastels, family photographs, and fresh-cut English roses, started to vanish. Her beloved plants, like forget-me-nots and lilies, were replaced by Camilla's floral preferences. Furniture was rearranged or completely removed. It felt like more than redecorating, McGrady said. It was a rewriting of the narrative. And to him, it wasn't about aesthetics, it was about erasing Diana's presence. What hurt the most, he recalled, was the treatment of Diana's photographs. They were once displayed in the hallways, not just for the staff, but for guests as well, he said. Pictures of Diana with her sons, full of joy and humanity, had been part of the palace's identity. But McGrady noticed that Camilla would scowl whenever she passed them. She didn't need to speak, her disapproval was evident. Gradually, the photos were moved to less prominent areas, then to private rooms, and eventually removed altogether. Only one remained, McGrady said, hidden in a room not accessible to the public. And after about 3 years, even that was gone. That disappearance was a turning point, he admitted. I was stunned. How could someone feel so threatened by a memory? It wasn't even a person anymore, it was just a photo. And even that was too much for her. It was at that moment McGrady uttered the words that reverberated across media headlines, "She is pure evil." He insisted it wasn't said for shock value. That was my honest, immediate reaction, he explained. Learning how every trace of Diana was deliberately removed from the home she helped shape made me physically ill. It felt cruel. It was deliberate. Within the palace, these changes were presented as routine updates, a fresh start. But McGrady and others who had known Diana felt differently. This wasn't just redecorating, he maintained. It was a statement. A calculated effort to remove everything Diana represented. What made it even more painful, he said, was the stark difference in energy between Diana and Camilla. Diana brought the palace to life, he reflected. There was warmth in the halls. She'd walk barefoot into the kitchen for orange juice or pack blankets into her car for people on the street. Her presence, her light, was unmistakable. When Camilla moved in, that light disappeared. Despite this, McGrady stayed silent for years. Living in the U.S., he focused on building his catering business and honoring Diana's legacy through charitable events and public appearances. But watching Camilla's ascent, from private partner to Duchess of Cornwall and finally to Queen Consort, eventually pushed him to speak out. I supported the coronation, he said. Because I believe in progress and in respecting the monarchy. But moving forward shouldn't mean covering up the truth or forgetting the sacrifices made. He emphasized that his motive wasn't bitterness, but love. I owe Diana that much, he stated. After everything she endured, the least I can do is safeguard her story, especially the difficult parts. His remarks struck a chord, not just among royal insiders, but globally. For many, McGrady's words validated long-held suspicions that Diana's memory had been quietly erased to make room for a more polished narrative. For others, it was a painful reminder of how the stories of those who suffer in silence can be rewritten or forgotten. When McGrady's interview went public, the reaction was swift and widespread. Public reaction to McGrady's revelations. Darren McGrady's emotional testimony sparked an immediate wave of public response. Within hours, social media exploded with comments, especially from Princess Diana's loyal supporters. His candid words echoed thoughts many had long believed but never heard confirmed. "Thank you, Darren, for finally telling the truth," one person posted. "You've expressed what so many of us have felt for years." Thousands of messages followed, commending his honesty and unwavering loyalty to Diana. Many saw his revelations as long overdue validation from someone who had been close to her. However, not everyone was supportive. Some questioned the timing. "Why now?" critics asked. "You endorsed the coronation and then criticized Camilla?" A few even accused him of chasing attention or trying to capitalize on old wounds. But his supporters pushed back. "He stayed silent for over 20 years, one user defended. "If anyone has earned the right to speak, it's him." Diana's memory was reignited. Old interviews, quotes, and videos resurfaced and went viral. Fan pages dedicated to her saw a surge in followers overnight. The message was loud and clear: the public hadn't forgotten the people's princess. And McGrady's words reopened a wound that had never fully healed. What's next for Queen Camilla? With McGrady's statements making headlines and dominating online discourse, Queen Camilla's carefully curated public image faces its greatest test yet. For years, her role had evolved, from the infamous other woman to a respected consort standing beside the future king. But now, allegations about her actions behind palace doors have renewed scrutiny. Supporters of the monarchy argue that Camilla deserves forgiveness and has earned her place. But Diana loyalists, many of whom never accepted Camilla's rise, see things differently. To them, the crown she now wears remains tarnished by the past. As expected, palace officials have maintained silence, sticking to the royal family's long-standing motto, never complain, never explain. But this time, silence may not be enough. Public sentiment is volatile, and McGrady's explosive account, so close to Camilla's coronation and Charles's growing reign, could not have come at a worse time. While some royal watchers believe the storm will pass, others warn that Camilla's already fragile approval ratings may suffer long-term damage. If McGrady's version of events gains more support, it could cast a shadow over her queenship for years to come. As for McGrady, he insists he's not out for revenge, only the truth. What people choose to do with it is their decision, he said. But I couldn't stay silent any longer. Now that the silence has been broken, the world is watching Queen Camilla more intently than ever, because once the truth emerges, the mask can never be worn again. What are your thoughts on Darren McGrady's shocking revelations? Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.